All right, so let's go ahead and get started. My name is Angela Miller, and I am the Community Involvement Coordinator for the Ward Transformer site. And tonight we are going to present to you a proposed cleanup plan for the site, for the Operable Unit 2 part of the site. We will have a presentation by Hillary, and then we will open it up for question and answers. And if you can see on the screen, everyone's mic is muted right now because of the background noise. These computers pick up very easy. We also have closed caption available, and it shows you there how you can turn that on. And then during the Q&A, there's a Q&A button. You can enter your question during the question and answer session, or you can unmute yourself and speak that way. We do have a court reporter that is transcribing the meeting tonight that will be part of our record. So, and when you put in your question at the comment, that will become part of our record. There's also other ways that you can submit comments that Hillary's going to talk about during his presentation. If you're listening by phone, you can access the Q&A function by pressing *9. Let us know that you have a question. Once we identify you by your phone number, you can press *6 to unmute. We'll bring this back up again at the end of Hillary's presentation. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the Remedial Project Manager, Hillary Thornton.
Thank you very much, Angela. Everybody, I am Hillary Thornton, the Remedial Project Manager for the US EPA, and it is my role in this project to manage the cleanup of this Superfund site. I have 26 years experience managing federal environmental cleanups for the EPA. And it's my pleasure to speak with you this evening and share the plan for Operable Unit 2 at the Ward Transformer Superfund site in Raleigh, North Carolina. Thank you, Angela, for that wonderful introduction and laying out of the ground rules. And thanks to everybody who's joining in tonight to listen in, as well as the team members who are here to help convey this information. So with that, let's move into the presentation. It will only be, let's say 15 minutes long, maybe 20 if I get long-winded. And after that, we'll have an opportunity for Q&A. So please do enter your questions in the Q&A box as you think of them, and we'll circle back and answer those once I've gotten through my slides. So our goals this evening are to share EPA's proposed cleanup plan for the contamination that is remaining at the site, and to offer opportunities for the community to participate in the process of choosing the cleanup plan. We will, as has been mentioned, share a full recording of tonight's webinar, including this slideshow, along with my voiceover and the Q&A session that will follow. And we'll also post just the slides by themselves in case you'd like those. So community participation in the Superfund process is important to the EPA, and tonight's public meeting is an important part of that. So you can see on the slide that we published the proposed plan on July 31st. That proposed plan is the fairly technical document, and we do try to write it in language that is understandable by the public, but inevitably, when we're talking about the cleanup of hazardous waste, it's necessary to use some technical terms. We also do accompany that with a fact sheet which we try even harder to use plain language and make understandable what the EPA is proposing to do. You got the opportunity to look at both of those documents as well as the rest of the administrative record throughout this public comment period, which is running from August 1st through August 30th. And submit your comments either orally tonight or in writing through mail or email. And we will include responses to comments from the public in the responsiveness summary section of the record of decision. The record of decision is EPA's formal document that explains how EPA arrived at our decision on how to best clean up this part of the site. Key documents, including the proposed plan that I mentioned earlier, are linked to on the site webpage, and they may also be viewed online, either on your own device or on the public computers that are available at the North Regional Library at the address shown on the screen. The main parts of EPA's plan can be broken into 4 pieces as summarized on this slide. You should keep those 4 parts in mind as we go through the remainder of the presentation this evening. EPA is proposing to inject oxygen underground to speed up the breakdown of contaminants in the groundwater at the site. It's a small area of groundwater, and we'll show that on one of the slides that follows. We propose to do long-term groundwater monitoring to track the progress of the cleanup and the effectiveness of our remedy. We'll restrict land and groundwater use in that contaminated area until cleanup is completed to prevent exposure. And lastly, we'll perform long-term monitoring and maintenance of the engineering controls, such as fencing, injection wells. Those are the sort of things that we're referring to when we talk about engineering controls, and that is to ensure continued protectiveness. Again, those are the 4 parts of EPA's cleanup plan, and you should keep those in mind as we go through these subsequent slides and I talk about the rest of the plan. Outline for this evening's presentation. I'll show you first off where the site is and how the contamination happened. I'll tell you what's already been done to clean it up and where contamination remains in Operable Unit 2. I'll explain what Operable Unit 2 is and why EPA's recently completed focused feasibility study showed what it showed and what the goal of that was, as well as what options EPA evaluated in that focused feasibility study. I'll explain EPA's proposed cleanup plan and the next steps, including taking into consideration your input and those of others who provide comments during this public comment period. And then I'll close with the contact information you should use to provide your comments. And then we'll take your questions and comments this evening. Where we can, we'll answer you directly tonight. And in some cases, if we don't have all the information at our fingertips to be able to answer your question, we may need to get back to you later. And if we need to do that, we will. So now let's move into the site description and history. This map, which is shown on the screen, shows the entire Ward Transformer Superfund site in a kind of color-coded manner. You can see that it follows the surface streams and reservoirs that wrap around the RDU airport, the Raleigh-Durham International Airport. However, tonight's presentation is focused on the much smaller area, which is outlined near the top of the map in a light green or turquoise color. That smaller area is referred to as Operable Unit 2 or OU2. And this is where the former Ward Transformer facility, the source of the contamination, was. On our next slide, and for the remainder of the presentation, we'll narrow our focus into just that area, but I did want to start out with showing you the entire site. So now we have sort of zoomed in to that area that was at the top of the previous map. That is Operable Unit 2. It's north of the Raleigh-Durham International Airport and south of Interstate 540. EPA did a major cleanup of the soil in this area already from 2004 to 2017. EPA treated the soil and piled it into a covered mound in the area that is shown in green on this figure and is labeled as treated soil. Groundwater monitoring has shown us a small area of shallow groundwater shown in orange on this map. By shallow, I mean it only goes down to about 35 feet below ground surface, and that groundwater that is contaminated is not currently being used as a drinking water source by anyone, not by Raleigh, not by any of the tenants of this property or for any purpose, but it is contaminated with what are called volatile organic compounds. And these are chemicals that were used by the Ward Transformer Company when they were in business. And that's what will be cleaned up by EPA's plan that we'll be explaining here tonight. Next slide shows what the more detail about the soil cleanup that was performed in this area between 2004 and 2017. The cleanup was extensive. It was quite deep, and the excavation work that was done during this earlier soil cleanup was done in 2 phases. The first phase involved excavation, some disposal of contaminated soil, and thermal treatment. The thermally treated soil was backfilled onto the Ward properties into that area that I showed in the green on the previous slide. It's not the area that's shown in green on this slide, but that smaller area of green on the previous slide. The cleanup level that was used for this was 1 part per million, and in areas of soil that were going to be placed under the treated soil cover, the cleanup standard was 10 parts per million. There were some areas where EPA was not able to remove all of the PCBs in our excavation process. We encountered areas where the PCB went all the way down to the bedrock, and our excavators were scraping that bedrock. It's referred to as refusal, when the excavating equipment can no longer remove soil. And there was a small area as well where there was an operating facility referred to as Estes, just in the southern portion of OU True. And there are some areas there where underneath concrete pads, there was contaminated soil that was left in place to allow Estes to continue to operate. Those were the 2 phases. The northern phase that was surrounded by the blue outline in this figure, and the southern phase, which conducted later, surrounded by the yellow outline, where the 2 sections overlap. You only see the yellow line across the middle of the operable unit there, but that was the boundary between the blue and the yellow. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit more about those few small areas where it was not possible to dig out all of the PCB contamination because of encountering bedrock and refusal. In those areas, a black geotextile warning layer, which is shown in the inset picture on this slide, was used to indicate that any future person that there was contamination left below. So in addition to mapping out and putting into the public record where these buried areas of contamination are, there is a black geotextile warning layer that anyone digging in the future would encounter before they reached the PCB contamination. And as I say, to show you what that black warning layer looked like before it was covered back up with clean soil and the soil surface brought back up to the normal grade, the normal ground surface, I have a picture showing you what that black warning layer looks like. So before coming to you this evening, EPA performed a focused feasibility study, and the goal of that study was to figure out which cleanup approach for the contamination remaining in operable Unit 2 would do the best job of achieving the goals of the cleanup. And these goals will be shown on the next slide. Here are the goals of the cleanup in plain language. There are 4 goals, and we call these in Superfund jargon the remedial action objectives. If you read the proposed plan, you will see those remedial action objectives spelled out in more technical terms, but for the purposes of this presentation tonight, I have simplified the language into wording that I think is easier for the public to understand. EPA has already done all of the soil cleanup that it could do, so the objective that you see here is to keep anyone from coming in contact with the remaining contaminated soil. In addition to the black warning layer and covering the contaminated soil with clean soil that I described in the earlier slides, we will also place what are called institutional controls or land use controls on the deeds of all the properties where contamination remains in place, and that will stay in place to warn future potential purchasers of that property what exists there. For groundwater, there are 3 goals: to keep anyone from drinking the contaminated groundwater, and while that's going on, to restore groundwater to drinking water standards, and lastly, to keep anyone from coming in contact with any future contaminated soil vapor. There is not, that EPA is aware of, any contaminated soil vapor at this time, but just to be safe, we've got an objective in here to keep anyone from coming in contact with that in the future. This table on my next slide shows the 4 site-related volatile organic compound contaminants that have been found in the shallow groundwater beneath the site and the cleanup level that EPA will achieve for each of them. And in cases where the state of North Carolina's standard for cleanup, which is in the middle column, is lower or more protective than the federally required standard listed under the EPA MCL column, we will use the lower, more protective standard, and you can see that in the cleanup level column, which is on the right-hand side of this chart. So, for example, for chlorobenzene, where the federal standard is 100, the North Carolina state standard is 50, we use the more protective, lower standard of 50. And that also is the case with 1,4-dichlorobenzene, where the federal standard is 75, but North Carolina has a standard of 6. So the lower standard of 6 will apply in this case. The other 2 compounds, the federal and state standards, are the same. This chart shows the 4 cleanup options that were evaluated by the EPA in the focused feasibility study and highlights in yellow EPA's preferred alternative. Proposed plan document, which was published on July 31st, 2023, and is linked on the site website for your review, contains additional detail about each of these alternatives and EPA's comparative analysis that led EPA to prefer alternative 3. As you can see, the cost of alternative 3 is neither the least expensive nor the most expensive. And you may also notice that there is a range of costs listed there. The exact cost will depend on the specific technology that will be chosen during the design phase that will follow after EPA's record of decision. The next slide will provide additional details about EPA's preferred cleanup plan. In summary, here are the main parts of EPA's preferred cleanup plan. First off, we intend to inject oxygen underground to speed up the breakdown of contaminants in the groundwater. There are several different technologies that could do that, and the particular one that seems to be best will be chosen during the design phase, and that's why there's a range of estimated costs for this alternative. Secondly, the long-term groundwater monitoring will be performed to track the progress of the cleanup and make sure that it's working the way that we intend it to. I had mentioned earlier those land use controls, restricting land and groundwater use until cleanup is completed to prevent exposure to that contamination is item number 3. And the last item is long-term monitoring and maintenance of the engineering controls to ensure continued protectiveness. This cleanup will be paid for using money that's already been paid by the companies who caused the contamination. Our state agency partner, the North Carolina DEQ, has agreed with the proposed remedy here that EPA prefers. They've evaluated that and indicated that they are in agreement with EPA's proposal. The area of remaining groundwater contamination is small and nobody is drinking it, but we're going to clean it up anyway. You may be wondering where we go from here. What are the next steps? This slide hopefully gives you some of those answers. So the proposed plan is currently available for your review. We're in what's called a 30-day public comment period, which runs from August 1st, when the public notice of the opening of the comment period was run in the local newspaper, through August 30th. EPA will publish a record of decision, hopefully in September 2023, following the conclusion of the public comment period and the finalization of the record of decision, incorporating comments received from the public in that responsiveness summary section that I mentioned before, as well as giving the state an additional opportunity to review and concur formally with the EPA's record of decision before it is routed for publication. After the record of decision, EPA will go into a contracting phase and select a contractor to perform a remedial design, which is an engineering design of the selected remedy spelled out in the record of decision. It's anticipated that by sometime in 2024, EPA will have completed that contracting phase and be able to begin a remedial design. And as you can see, that is anticipated to last approximately 2 years, following which EPA will be ready to begin a remedial action phase. EPA anticipates using funds in a special account to pay for the remedial action at this site. So we should be able to proceed pretty directly from remedial design into remedial action. Again, we will need to get a contractor on board through the federal contracting process to perform that remedial action, but we can do that beginning in 2026. It will take a period of time. The exact length of that period will depend on what technology is chosen, or perhaps another year to construct the remedy, and that would start in 2026. So by 2027 or so, it would be time to operate the remedy until the cleanup goals are met. Now, I put on here that that might be approximately 2050. It really depends on how effective that the remedy EPA selects turns out to be. We'll have done our best to design a remedy that will be effective and will quickly remediate the contamination remaining in the groundwater. But the exact timing is, of course, unknown. And our best estimate that is that it should be done by approximately 2050. We'll have met our cleanup goals and be ready to remove this site from the national priorities list and let it go on to reuse and redevelopment. It is possible that some forms of reuse and redevelopment could occur sooner than that, after the remedy has been constructed and is operating. There are a lot of uses that could occur in this site that would not disturb the operation of the remedy, and they could go on at the same time. So hopefully that's a good look into the next steps, both in the near term, in the next 30 days, later this year, next year, and on into the more distant future. As Angela Miller and I stated early on, the two goals of tonight's event are to share our plan with you, which I've just done, and to answer your questions and record your comments on EPA's plan, which we're about to do. If you're ready with your questions or comments now, we'll soon be opening the microphones for those. And if you need more time to digest what you've just heard tonight and to do your own research by reading the full proposed plan on our website, or whatever other research you might need to do, you have until midnight on August 30th, 2023 to submit your email or to have your mailed in comment postmarked. With that, let me turn it back over briefly to our Community Involvement Coordinator, Angela Miller, who will let you know how we'd like you to ask your questions tonight. Thank you, Angela.
Okay, thank you so much, Hillary. So now we'll open it up for Q&A. You can unmute yourself. I think there is a...
Actually, they'll need to raise their hand first.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So if you can find that, if not, it might be in your reactions tool in the toolbar, but otherwise, if you see a raised hand, click that. You can also put your questions in the Q&A tool in the toolbar, either one.
And if you can't find your toolbar, move your cursor around and it pops up at the bottom.
That's a good one, Angela. Good one.
In the beginning, how many times did we, where's the toolbar?
True.
So yeah. So if there are any questions, open up. I did want to mention that we do have in the meeting, we do have Beth Hartzell with North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. She has joined us tonight. So if you have a question for North Carolina, she's here.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Angela.
You're welcome. Any questions? Don't be afraid. If you don't want to raise your hand, put it in the chat. You can click the Q&A or click the chat.
Yep, either one.
Yep.
Either
You
one.
can do either one. We're watching. I've got the chat up on my big screen, so I'm ready for all the questions. For all the questions to come in.
And if you do need time to digest what we've put forward
Yes.
tonight, feel free to do that as well. You've got a couple more weeks to get those comments in all the way up until August 30th. So.
We're going to post, like I think Hillary said it already, but we're going to post this recorded presentation on the website. I believe it'll be sometime next week. Laura can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
Yeah. So there's several things that we have to do before we get it posted. But if you need to go back through it again, it'll be ready next week. So.
And even if you just wanted to listen tonight, and if you don't have specific questions for us, we're happy that you are here
Yes.
and listened. That's part of your doing your civic duty, being involved in your community, caring about what's going on. And we appreciate the trust that you put in us as public servants, trying to do our best to get this site cleaned up, make it protective for human health and the environment. Protecting human health and the environment is the mission of the Environmental Protection Agency. That's what we do.
That's right. We'll give it just a couple more minutes for people to ask questions. If there are no questions, we can give you your night back. I will say too, once the comment period's over and the record of decision has been finalized and signed, we will publish another notice, and it's in the News and Observer. We'll publish another notice letting everybody know that the record of decision has been signed.
But
we'll also
community involvement does not end when this public comment period ends.
No,
Angela is
sir.
here for you. I'm here for you. Beth Hartzell is here. You can reach out to us at any time with questions and comments that you have about the progress of our cleanup at the site and anything else related to the site that you want to ask. We're public servants and we're here for you. We have a lot of other responsibilities as well. It may take us a bit to get back to you sometimes. Can't always be as responsive as we'd like to be, but we'll do our best to get back to you.
You can always get us.
Timely.
Yep.
Yes.
Phone or email.
That's right.
I'm
I
not
did
seeing
want to
any
say,
questions, guys, and people are dropping, so feel free to
Okay.
wrap up.
okay. Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you so much. A lot of work has gone into this site, cleaning this site up. There was a day where there were a lot of people interested, but a lot of work, a lot of time has already gone into this site. So no questions. We'll take that as a compliment that people are happy. But anyway, for those watching, Hillary, for those that may watch us later, please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have a question, if you need clarification, if you need more understanding of a certain part of the presentation or the process that we're doing, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you to understand what EPA is proposing to do. But we thank you so much for those that attended tonight, and we thank you to those who are going to watch us later. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Gonna go ahead and end the meeting now.
Okay, thanks.